Evening. I'd like to call together the regular board meeting for the Village of Tinley Park Plan Commission to order, and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Secretary, please take roll.
Croner,
Here.
Curran,
Here.
Engel, Manny, Gatto,
Here.
Gray,
Here.
Augustiniak,
Present.
Shaw, Stanton.
Here. Okay, looks like we have a quorum. Staff, are there any communications?
No, not at this time.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the minutes from the February 15th, 2018 meeting.
So moved.
By Commissioner Curran, and a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Croner. All right, all those in favor of approving the February 15, 2018 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, the first item on the agenda this evening is a workshop for the Southwest Christian School at 17171 84th Avenue. We will be reviewing the site plan for approval and considering several variations. Staff, please make your presentation.
Good evening, everybody. We have two issues we're going to address this evening. They have two approvals they're seeking. One is for site plan review and one is for variations. You have visited the site. I'll tell you, I've gone by here many times. It's a beautiful building, but never really paid much attention to the buildings before. And it's interesting in that it's an R1 zoning district. It's a permitted use there, but some of the nuances of our code don't necessarily address some of the nuances of a school, such as buses. So in order to build a new transportation building, because they had one in Oak Lawn, I was going to say Oak Forest, Oak Lawn, and it's torn down. They would like to build a new transportation building that will help provide space for meetings, restrooms, and minor repairs of the buses, but one bus in there at a time, and continue the parking of the buses that are parked out there now, and add 3 more buses to the amount of buses that they're going to be parking. So in terms of the history on the property, I found it quite interesting, and Mr. Dorn, I'm sure, will probably provide us a little better, but the Southwest Christian School has actually 3 different locations, one in Oak Lawn, one in Palos Park, and then this one here in Tinley Park. The school here opened in 1986, and it started with just a K through 5, and it's grown to now a pre-K to 8, and they have about 300 students attending this school. The high school is in Palos Heights, and interesting, they're going to celebrate their 100-year anniversary, so they're working hard on a nice celebration over there. For the past 10 years here, this school has parked the 8 school buses that if you drove out and looked at the site, you'll see them out there now. It's a fairly large site, 14 acres, over 14 acres, and the majority of it is open space. As you look to the south, a lot of vegetation. Park District off to the east and housing off to the west. They have about 77% of their open and green space on their property. So the issues that we're going to be looking at with respect to variations, in order to do what they want to do, they need a variation on the size of an accessory structure. Really, when we look at accessory structures, typically in a residential district, we're thinking of garages. So we have like a 720 square foot limitation on that. We're also looking at the height. The height is measured to the ridge of the roof, and they have 21 feet, and they need 18. They're also looking at a variation in terms of allowing the bus barn to function as it's intended, and that's with the buses being repaired and so forth, as well as allowing them to park the school buses on the outside. So as I mentioned, there's actually 2 parcels there. To the north is the church property. This is distinct from the school property, even though right now some of the uses overlap and the bus storage that they have now overlaps onto the church property. But they're looking to bring all of that onto their own property with these renovations. You can kind of see here in the yellow is the school. The red there is the transportation building. So the parking, the new parking, you'll see there at the bottom, the 11 parking spaces, they're actually more screened with this configuration than right now where they are. That top gray square is where the buses are now, and they're parked in an east-west fashion. They do have it screening through evergreens on the north side, and you know, it's pushed back from the property. I wouldn't say they're an eyesore in terms of where they are now, but certainly with the new location, the new construction of the transportation building will help to screen that somewhat. And then they're also looking to, because they're going to have to move the basketball court because of the improvements, they're looking to build a new basketball court. This is what the inside of the barn will be. So you'll see you have room for 1 bus to be in there to do minor repairs, oil changes, cleaning. They need storage. Right now there's a cargo container on the site, which is not allowed. So they're going to bring that storage inside, and that cargo container will be removed. So there is an improvement to that. Restrooms, break room, and an office. That cargo container, this isn't take a variation because they know they're going to have to remove it. It's out there now, and they're not allowed on a permanent basis. And so with your approvals, if you approve this site plan, we recommend that you condition it on the removal of the cargo container. Let's move on to landscaping. There is some existing landscaping out there. If you had read through the staff report, you know, we reviewed it against the landscape ordinance, which has a lot of requirements regarding buffer yards, but it does provide some flexibility where we have existing landscaping. So they already have sort of a line of vegetation along the east property line, and then obviously they have all that vegetation on the south. And so I don't think it's necessary to go through the details of this, but you can see the comments of our landscape architect review, where at one point, you know, he was giving them credit for existing vegetation, and he thought, well, you know, put some islands in the parking lot. And if you read through the review, you'll see the problem with doing that is where the green square is, you know, that is not on their property. And plus, you know, as much as I like landscape islands, when you have buses doing the turning radiuses they have, it becomes a little problematic. And now that we're in winter, I also think it's an issue with snow plowing as well. So at the end of the day, and you see sort of a back and forth on some issues that were raised by the landscape architect and the responses by Southwest Christian School. At the end of the day, I believe they meet the integrity of the landscape ordinance with the landscaping that they are providing. And there's just the only last comment was we just want to make sure we're saving as many of the existing trees as possible, and I suspect you want to do that too. You have some nice evergreens on the north side of the existing parking, and that makes a nice screening from 171st Street, so we'd really like to see those preserved. And so that was just an issue. And actually, I didn't even think about that right now. We could make your approval conditioned upon, as part of the building permit, we could have a tree preservation, you know, there's ways that they can set up fencing and so forth. And speaking with them, that's what they want to do anyway. But it might be something to think about in putting another condition on your approval. So I'll make sure I note that when we get to our public hearing. Then with respect to architecture, and they did bring their building materials with them today, but this is the existing school, and they are trying to do what they can to kind of mimic some of the architecture that's existing there now. They're going to use the same building, same brick, and so it's a fully masonry structure, and it's a front gable, and so that's, you know, somewhat mimics what you have going on there in the entrance and with the siding. So you can see in the color rendering here, even though it's a different scale than the entrance, you know, it mimics the architecture of the existing. It's not highly visible building in terms of where it's located. Also with trash enclosures, you know, that we require trash enclosure to be fully enclosed and to match the material of the building, and that's what they plan on doing. It'll be a brick enclosure. And I think we have a line there where it's going to be located. One thing, I just spoke with the applicant coming in here today that I didn't really notice it on the, I see it on this plan, but I didn't notice it on the engineering plan. I just want to make sure I point that out to the Plan Commission. If you went out there, you'll see that the buses that are out there now are enclosed by a chain link fence, 6 foot. I'm presuming it's a 6 foot fence, gentlemen? Is it 6? It looked like it was 6. I can't.
I think it's 8. I think it's.
Is it 8?
I think it's 8.
It is.
I think the existing one is, yes.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue. So we'll go, I didn't know that. I apologize. So is that going to be necessary? Can you live with a 6 foot fence?
I think it's preferred. I mean, we're trying to protect against vandalism of the windows, and that's usually tall enough to prevent someone from taking a direct shot at the rear windows of the bus. But, you know, if it's unachievable, you know, we can talk about it.
Yeah, I'll need to do a little research. I'm pretty sure, I know in residential it's 6 foot. I don't know if commercial uses can be 8 foot, but I don't know if commercial uses, this is really an institutional use. The good thing about this, I write my notices, my public notices as sort of a catch-all. I put in there what I know, and then it also has a clause in the notice and any other variations that are deemed necessary. So I'll do some research and have that ready for you all for the next meeting. We can certainly talk about it this evening, so you can give direction to the applicant how you feel about an 8 foot chain link fence. I will tell you, having gone out there to look at it, because it is chain link, it somewhat fades away, unlike a solid wood fence would. I can understand your need for making sure you keep the vandals out. So let's talk about zoning. It is in R3 residential district, and schools, primary and secondary schools are permitted use, so we're fine in terms of the uses for the property. However, the requirements of an accessory structure, even though it's used for institutional use, there is a limit of 720 square feet. So you do need to have a variation on the size. So to permit a transportation building of 2,400 square feet, you need a variation of 1,680 square feet. So that would be one of the variations that we'll be addressing. The next one is the height, and again, 18 feet is the requirement up to the peak of the structure, and we have 21 feet on this proposal. You know, you could certainly flatten roofs. It's not going to give them the height in the building, and it probably would be a different slope than the front gable on the building, and might look a little odd. So, you know, 21 feet is the variation that they would need to keep the architecture that they're proposing. The parking of the vehicles, oh wait, I'm sorry, the first one is utilities. So right now, for whatever reason, accessory structures in residential districts, they can't be serviced by water, service, sewer. I think that's because most of the time we're thinking of sheds, you know, on a residential property. Really didn't contemplate this kind of use. So, but it is there in our ordinance that you can't have water, sewer, or natural gas running to the building. They obviously need that to function as a transportation building. So that would be a third variation you'd have to consider. And then the last one would be the parking of commercial vehicles. They have to be enclosed in a structure in a residential district. If I go back to this one plan, to try to house eight buses in the garage, obviously would end up being a fairly large garage. I thought I could go back far enough. But it would be cost prohibitive, I would suspect, and they have historically housed 8 buses on this site for last 10 years. And then what I would say is there would be then a fifth variation for a height of a fence. I do need to do some research. I just don't know off the top of my head. I know we do allow 8-foot fences in commercial districts and industrial districts. I'm not sure that would apply in a residential district, even though it's an institutional use. So I do need to look that up for you. I might be able to do that while you're talking. So, summary, as you see in your report, again, we have 6 open items. The first one is the cargo container. So I would recommend in your site plan review, we have 2 approvals we're looking at, site plan review and variations. For the site plan review, I would recommend that you have a removal of the cargo container as part of your site plan review. And then make sure you protect the existing trees would be another condition I would recommend. And then the variations, as I mentioned, you've got your size, height, the extension of utilities, the parking of school buses outside, and then the last one might be the fence height. The standards are written in here for you to consider when we come to our next meeting for a vote. It's just in there for you to think about, as well as the standards for a variation. That's all I have.
Great, thank you, Paula. Does the petitioner, would you like to present anything?
I think Paula did a pretty nice job of outlining what we'd like to do there. As she mentioned, we've had a number of buses parked there, 8 of them for a number of years. The current proposal is we would now have 11 of them parked. While we have 3 more parked, they're basically our spare buses, or the buses we use for field trips or athletic events. We currently have 5 morning and afternoon routes that begin and end at the school, bringing the kids up and back to school. That traffic flow won't change. So we have the same 5 routes beginning and ending at the school. But we're going to store 3 other buses that again are basically our spares and those that are used for athletic trips, field trips, things like that. So, and as she mentioned, we sold a portion of our property in Oak Lawn to Anthem Memory Care to build a memory care facility, and as part of that, that's where our existing bus garage was from back in the 1960s. And more of our students and more of our transportation has gone further south over the last 30 or 40 years. So this is a much more central location for us to have those buses and our transportation folks housed.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, for the commissioners, any questions or comments?
On the chain link fence, the 8-foot chain link fence, one of the changes we've made just recently in our fence ordinance is that it has to be a rust-resistant chain link fence, just to make sure we're all on the same page on that it just can't be the old standby.
Cyclone.
Yeah. And personally, I would not have, I'm not sure what Paul's going to find, I would not have an issue leaving a variance out there for the 8 feet for your reasons, yeah.
Especially based on where it is. It's not, it doesn't abut any residential areas. There's already the natural buffers of the trees between that and the recreational facilities on the other side. So unless you're going back there to look, you'd never see it.
Right.
I don't know if this applies to our hearing here, but is there any additional detention required on site?
If the engineer could answer, so we haven't gotten the engineering reviewed yet.
So I'm the architect. I'm Rich DeBoer. We're working with Joseph Shute and Associates, who's a civil engineer for the project, and they've done some preliminary engineering. We will have to address MWRD requirements, and there probably will be some additional storage. But we're probably going to have to coordinate that with the church, because currently the 2 sites share stormwater detention. So we're working with the church to end up with a cross easement agreement and engineer all that. But yes, there will be some requirement, but it's achievable.
Will there be any storage on the grounds of flammable or explosive materials with the maintenance that you guys will be doing on the buses?
It'll be very minor. I mean, they don't do major repairs there, so there'll be a small amount of engine oil. There'll be a little bit of hydraulic fluid, things like that. In fireproof cabinets, not 55-gallon drums and bulk storage of any type.
Okay, thank you.
And there's no fueling or refueling or any of that, of any of the?
There's no fueling station anticipated, no.
I have a question on, like, the first item, which is site plan approval. Looking through the site plans, it's not just the Joseph A. Shute, it's also Architect LTD, correct?
That's me.
I just have a question. Are these plans complete at this time?
So it's a preliminary site plan.
Sure.
That's what we intend to do.
Yeah.
Schute's drawings are more or less complete. He has to finish his engineering.
Okay.
He basically, as far, you know, with a zoning change, we wanted to make sure that that was something the village was open to before we expended a lot of engineering dollars. So Schute has gone far enough that he has looked at it preliminary, said this is achievable. You know, whether we move this berm up slightly or we dig this hole a little bit, you know, that's to be determined. As far as the sanitary routing, he's determined that, and basically we went far enough to figure, yes, this is all engineering-wise achievable, provided the village is, you know, amenable to it.
In terms of the building itself, too, what about the bearing capacity and the type of foundations?
Because of the bus load? Because of the soil?
Both.
Okay, so we don't have a soil test for the area yet. We'll have to get that as part of the construction. I don't anticipate that it would be an issue. The school's not too far away, and there were no issues during that construction. As far as the buses, it'll be a heavier pavement than you would typically have on, you know, parking lot, because we're anticipating the heavier bus load and them racking their tires and things.
And you are doing concrete.
And we intend to have it be concrete to help achieve, you know, some of that.
So the pavement design, the thickness, all
Yes.
that stuff will
It's on the
come
civil-
later?
Well, it's on the civil engineering drawings,
Okay.
but, you know,
It'll be part of the building.
they're not submitted for permit yet. They're.
Fair enough,
yeah,
fair enough. Okay,
right.
good.
Great, thank you. All right, there'll be a public hearing on this matter at the March 15th, 2018 regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting. And Paula, go to the order.
Well, I would just, if you want to have some discussion on the open items, are there any, I heard Peter, is there any other, it is 6 foot, so we're going to have to do a variance on the height. So, does anyone have any other comments about any of the items that were open?
I think just
Concerns?
a comment on the parking lot and the possibility of adding islands. I think there's already islands existing in that shared parking lot, and I wouldn't see the need to add more. Your comment about
Right. It's not
trying
even
turning
their
buses
property.
and everything would be, just cause more problems.
Okay, great.
Can I just ask one question about the ownership? I know I was asking the young lady from the school. Separate entities own the church and separate entities own the school. Are they in some way together?
Yeah, two distinct entities. There's no formal legal relationship between the two. Southwest Chicago Christian School has been part of or supported by a group of what are called Reformed churches, Christian Reformed Church in America. And there's probably a dozen of those churches that are supportive of the school. Many of those individuals serve as board members, but there's no legal control between the school and the church.
Thank you.
Okay. So, I don't hear any concerns about an 8-foot fence?
No.
Okay,
Not based where it
great,
is.
thank you.
Good, okay. And is there anybody from the public? I don't think so. All right, so.
Also, I didn't mention lighting, I just want to let you know, they are not proposing any new lighting. There's some lighting on the building facing down, but.
Okay, just
no
to
lighting.
illuminate doorways and
Right.
things like that, yeah.
Have the residents around the area been notified?
Mhm. For the public hearing.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Well, if memory serves me of the property, there's a baseball field to the south of where, or baseball, soccer, multi-purpose field, and then south of that is where the residential property is. So we're probably talking
Pretty
300,
far.
400, 500 yards from,
But there's houses to the west,
Yeah, you got all those
across the
people-
street,
you got all those people in the room.
across 84th Avenue.
yeah, well, the silent majority
The
in
silent majority across the street there, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hey.
Oh, sorry, I didn't catch it. Okay,
All right,
thank you.
okay, may I have a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
By Commissioner Augustiniak, second.
Second.
By Commissioner Gatto. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Did you want to do good of the order at all, or?
Sure.
Oh, that was in the meeting, but